Edward King Bass IV was born in the late 90s in Florida. At a young age, he would move to Atlanta, which is where he'd grow up. When he was a kid, Edward would be fascinated with art and music and would post about it in online communities. One memory he had from an early age was his father buying him a hat with fish bones on the front, and this idea inspired a skeleton aesthetic which he'd carry on later. During his early years, Edward began producing music under the name Sight. He would do well for the online circles he was in. He would release an EP on SoundCloud called Architecture, which featured some of his best beats at the time. Edward would gain more and more connections as well as improving his sound and creating ideas for fashion brands. Eventually, his beats would end up reaching an up-and-coming artist named XXXTentacion. They make a song together called Elegant. Even though this song would never officially release, it would gain lots of traction in online communities, and it influenced him greatly. Edward would also attend school to learn more about psychology and how we interact with each other, and those themes would go on to be heavily featured in his work later on. With all of this and rumors of a solo album releasing, you think Edward would go into hyperdrive, but no. He'd go on sort of a hiatus and not release any music or really do anything in the public eye for about a year. But then he came back and released his first clothing brand, Sickly. Sickly is a luxury clothing brand that features avant-garde designs with specifically creepy faces on the clothes. There were hoodies, sweatpants, and even bags, which are my personal favorite. Sickly was pretty successful, and it resells for almost double the retail price, and has been worn by celebrities like Lucky, and went viral on TikTok. Around this time, Edward would get a side gig working at a psychiatric hospital. And not much is known about this, and he specifically remained vague on this matter, but something happened, possibly due to stress from the job and running his own fashion company made him break down. He had a psychotic episode that lasted about a year in his own words, and it seems the experience changed him. Edward dove into spiritual philosophy and started to practice non-duality. Non-duality is the idea that you and the world are not separate entities, and that it's just an illusion. Suffering comes when you fail to realize this, and enlightenment can only come by realizing your true identity, which is the universe. It's psychology rooted in self instead of focusing on others in the world. It's all about you. Edward also would read the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, a German philosopher who teaches that peace can only be found in the present, but the mind always instinctively looks to the past. Tolle tells us that your ego does not exist, it's just your thoughts, which are formed from your memories and belief, and even those are not truly you. Edward would take these to heart, and they are everywhere from his music to his tweets. I think they can be explained in this tweet right here, made on July 20th, 2025. If you want to go kill someone, go kill someone. Just be at peace, and be at peace with what happens next. In early 2020, the advent of AI generation would change everything and flood social media en masse, but before that, Edward would take advantage of it and start posting TikToks with disturbing AI content. He would start to build a sort of world and lore for himself and go under the name Edward Skeletrix. The TikTok would take place on Skeletrix Island, and he would drop a song called Skeletrix Magic. He would go on to drop some more singles. During this time, Edward would start to gear up for his first major album release, creating a series of clues online so fans could try to find snippets of the album, which was helpful when drumming up hype. Then on December 1st, 2023, Edward Skeletrix would release Skeletrix Language, his first studio album. Skeletrix Language is an experimental rage rap album. When I mean experimental, I mean experimental. The majority of the songs on this album don't have proper names. They're simply named typical rap song 1, 2, 3, etc. The second song of the album has no rapping, just Edward mumbling over a serene beat, and the final song has nearly 8 minutes of pure silence to end things off. You are probably listening and thinking this sounds horrible, but don't think that. Give it a listen, you'll find that it's actually a very surreal experience. It really puts you in his mind and what he was feeling while making it. Over 13 tracks, Edward raps about how he has all the money, fame, and women anyone could want, and how ridiculous it all is. Life is pretty ridiculous as a concept, and his music is no exception. My favorite tracks of this album are tied between Typical Rap Song 2 and Rapper FW24SS24. I love Typical Rap Song 2, but you can't beat the Cardi sample on FF24, and the music video's sick. After the release of Skeletrix Language, Edward would continue to ride the hype, collaborating with another underground artist and his personal friend, Brennan Jones, who is very, very controversial in his own right, but that's a whole nother video. He would release 2 singles that were going to be on a new project of his that had a more seemingly lo-fi production than the last. Edward had multiple creative projects floating around this time. He would start to creative direct for other artists, so for the time he retired his brand Sickly. Edward would announce a new project called Museum Music, and the route to this thing was insane and almost killed him. Around 1 year later, Edward would hold a museum music exhibition in New York, which would feature a lot of the art that he did, including live performances from some actors he hired. This thing was packed, and even some minor celebrities ended up pulling up, which was really nice to see. The trouble would come when people would come across the main exhibit, Edward Skeletrix himself. Edward put himself in a glass box barely big enough to fit him, with holes in it so people could do as they please, and he wouldn't do anything to stop him. This was really cool, showing how we don't view celebrities as people rather than animals for our amusement. It was a truly breathtaking piece, but unfortunately people would ruin it. A few fans would try to light Edward on fire. Fortunately they weren't successful, but it ended up closing the event early. Edward wouldn't let this get to him, and as a final promotional stunt he would release 50 iPads that were custom made to be Edward Skeletrix themed, with the album preloaded on these devices. And these things are sick, and I'm really mad that I didn't get one. Edward would also announce that we're getting 2 different versions of Museum Music, a regular version and an I'm a Monster version, which would have completely different track lists. And on January 1st, 2025, Museum Music would be released. Museum Music is the second studio album by Edward Skeletrix, and it was significantly better received than any of his previous work. Museum Music is about our society and how we live in it. We kill each other over things like money and Instagram followers, take drugs to numb the pain, and use things like designer clothes and sex to distract ourselves from it. And Edward embraces all of this, and he finds it kind of funny. This is where the non-duality philosophy comes in. He talks about how, with all the death and destruction and chaos in the world, his advice to people is simple: just to be happy. Museum Music isn't a middle finger to society, it's more like a comical roast of it. The other I'm a Monster version, which was released on an alternate account, also features similar themes, but it's a more personal version of it. I recommend listening to it after the regular version of Museum Music because it builds on those themes. It's less polished, and it feels like a mixtape at times, but it's still pretty good. This album would blow up and bring Edward to new heights. He'd also relaunch Sickly under a new name, Edward King Bass IV, and also announce a new album called Body of Work, although it is not released and has been delayed. Edward would then go on a talk show called Well, which features underground artists and will talk about his goals in life. He says that he doesn't care about music, and his main passion is creative directing. He'd also get into his first beef with Brennan Jones, and say that apparently Brennan threatened to kill him. And Jones teased a diss on Edward, but it hasn't released yet. Edward dropped some more singles, and literally just as I got done writing this video, he announced another exhibition, which is seemingly going to lead up to his new album. So who knows what's going to happen in the future. All I know is that Edward will continue to reach new heights as he continues to push the boundaries of what an artist truly is. Thank you for watching, and please support Edward Skeletrix.